things down, my score went up and up and up, like over 130 points. From one year to the next, it went up. But when I paid off my student loan, my credit score dropped by 45 points. Hey everyone, welcome back to the page. If this is your first time coming to the page, I am Tiara, and we are here to talk more credit card stuff, interest stuff, some things I forgot on the last video. So this one will be really quick, hopefully. So 3 things that I left off of the previous video was how you calculate your credit history, credit limit increases, and double payments on your credit cards each month. So let's jump into the first one. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. So first and foremost, sorry, looking down, looking at my computer, calculating your credit history. So this is pretty simple. Calculating your credit history is just a matter of looking at all of your accounts. So this will be your credit cards, your student loans, if you have a car note, all this good stuff. When the accounts were open, adding up each of those years from each card or account and dividing it by the number of accounts. So from the previous video, I had my credit cards there, my student loans, and we had my Discover card that was open in 2011. We had my American Express card that was open in 2013, and my Angel credit card that was opened in 2013 as well, and my USAA card, which was open in 2015, with my student loans open in 2010 when I started college. So if I add those together, you have, and I'm calculating from today, that gives me 44, and then we're going to take 44 and divide it by 6 because this is 6 accounts that we are calculating, and 44 divided by 6 equals 7.333. So we'll just say that I have 7.3 years of credit history total as of today with those accounts that I brought up previously. So you can do the same thing with your cards or your accounts, student loans, car note, mortgage, all that good stuff. Add up the years, divide it by however many accounts you have there, and voila, you have your credit history. Next thing on the list is your credit limit increase. So some card companies will increase your credit limits on their own. If you're in good standing, they will just increase them. If you start doing some crazy stuff, they might actually decrease. I know that happened previously on one of my husband's cards. Not that he was doing bad stuff, but I think it was because he wasn't really using it. So then they lowered the credit limit. But yes, you can request a credit limit increase. I would say every 9 to 12 months. My friend and I were going back and forth on this. I know one of my card holders was saying I could check in every 6 to 9 months and see if I could get a credit increase. But my friend did bring up the good point that if you're asking every 6 months, it's pretty frequent. And when they do these things, they are pulling your credit when they do it. So you're getting dinged, which means your credit score is going to go down by a couple of points every time you do this. And so 6 months, it's a little excessive. And I'm pretty sure most card companies are not even going to let you do it every 6 months. 9 months is also kind of pushing it, but I would say every 9 to 12 months you can ask for a credit increase or credit limit increase.
She's scamming you.
Scam.
Oh, it's not. What's going on? Wait, who are you talking to?
I'm doing my video.
Oh, my bad. I didn't hear your video.
So yeah, every 9 to 12 months you can ask for a credit limit increase. I would lean more toward annually because you don't want to have your credit being dinged every time you ask for these increases. And if you're asking that frequently, I have a feeling that they're just going to say no anyway. So then you're asking for a limit increase too often to the point where it's not benefiting you. So yes, let's just say annually. It's a matter of calling the card company. Sometimes you can even do it through your apps, or you can do it like through their dial-in system where it'll ask you a couple of questions and then it'll let you know immediately if you're actually going to get the limit increase there. If you ever get something back like where they're talking to you and they say, oh, well, we're gonna have to send it to you in the mail, they need to look more into it and then they'll send you the results in the mail, that means no. Like, they already know that, but that means no, that they're not going to increase your limit. So a good reason, or not a good reason, but a reason someone might want to increase their credit limit would be simply because they just want to be able to utilize more credit. I am not suggesting you do that because you already know we're debt free. We don't plan to be in debt again. And when we use our cards, it's going to be very strategic, meaning that we're going to use it the same way we would use our debit card, but we're going to pay it off to zero at the end of every month. And in the meantime, since we are using our cards that we are paying off to zero at the end of every month, we're also gaining mileage points because we like to travel. So if you're not doing that, well, I'm not even going to say if you're not doing that. You don't need to do that because you're supposed to be focused on getting out of debt. So, but a reason that someone might want to do a credit limit increase is simply because they want to maybe down the line be able to utilize a larger line of credit if needed. Another reason could be, if you have a big purchase maybe that you know of that's coming up that you would rather put on a card versus paying in cash or using a debit card. That is another reason. Also though, and this is the reason why I have previously, was because it helps your overall utilization. So when your credit is being checked, your credit score is being evaluated, your utilization comes into play, which we already kind of touched on in the last video. But if you have more credit line available, then of course your utilization is going to look smaller, even if you have, something charged to one of your cards. So let's say I have $5,000 worth of a balance across my cards, and overall I have $20,000. That is the total credit limit that I have over all of these cards. So out of the 20,000, I'm using 5,000, which means that is a quarter of my utilization being used. However, if I went and asked for a line increase on one of my cards and they said yes, and I increased it by 10,000, let's say, that means I now have $30,000 overall of credit limit. So if I have $5,000 used across my cards and my credit line is now 30,000 instead of 20, then my utilization now drops from 25% to, 16%. So I'm now only utilizing 16% of my overarching credit limit, even though I still have $5,000 used overall. Same cards, I just have a larger credit limit now, and so my utilization looks lower. The lower your utilization, the better your credit score. Let's say that again. The lower your utilization, the better it looks when considering your credit score. So, summary of the credit limit increase: ask for an increase annually if you need it. For me, I've only asked, like I said before, only twice because I feel like I have enough in line of credit that I do not need to request more, but I'm pretty certain that I could get more if I requested it. However, won't be doing that. An increase can be utilized if you need to make a big purchase, or if you just want to have extra line of credit there, maybe for emergencies possibly. That's a reason to ask for a credit limit increase. And then overall to help your credit score, because even if you're utilizing, even if you have a balance of $5,000 and your overarching utilization is 20%, if you then increase it, then it might be 16% like our example. So that makes for a better credit score. And last but not least, double payments on your credit cards. So we mentioned understanding like our billing cycles and to know your billing cycles in order to stay on budget. But one thing that I should have brought up was like understanding your billing cycles so you know how to pay your credit cards twice a month. So I would say this is more important once you are at the weeds of the debt situation and you're still using your cards, you're paying them to zero at the end of each month, because it's better to focus on getting debt free than it is to be trying to do all this extra stuff with your credit cards as well, or your credit score. But what I will say is that I did find as I started paying things off, my credit score continued to go up and up and up. Another thing that one of my friends told me about that has helped her actually maintain her 800s credit score was by making double payments. And so basically it shows, how do you explain this? The payment activity, it looks better if you have more payments there that show that your payments are on time, but also frequent. And so the tip here is basically if you can, or if you can remember, if you can put a schedule or some type of reminder, pay your bill 2 weeks after the billing cycle starts. And then you want to pay again, of course, right when, or a little before, a couple days before your actual payment is due. And so for all of my stuff, all of my bills due the first week of each month because we get paid once a month. So what I would do is let's say something is due on the 5th. I'm going to make sure I pay my bill on the 1st, but then I'm also going to track 2 weeks back from the 1st and make a payment there too. So if you want to pay a little bit more on your cards, like I was doing, I always made sure I paid a little bit more, but back then I didn't know about the benefits or advantages of doing a double payment each month, or I would have paid the minimum and then also paid whatever the additional payment was at a different time if I'd known about this. But since we're paying everything to zero at the end of the month, what I would do is I would just split it down the middle. I will pay, let's use $1,000. I will pay $500 on the 1st, and then on the 14th I would have I'm backtracking, but I guess you could also go forward and say, if I'm talking about the April bill, that means I would have paid March 14th, and then on the 1st of April, I'm going to pay the other $500. So then that billing cycle that is over, that is due on April 5th, is now already paid for. Already made a payment 2 times, which shows activity twice instead of just once, even though I'm still paying the same amount of money that I would have paid on the 1st. So yes, that was the third and final thing. Do double payments. Make sure you space them out by about 2 weeks of each other. Pay a couple days before the actual due date, and then pay your 2 weeks prior or after. It doesn't matter, because if you're doing this, it's staggering anyway. But if you do have a situation where you have like a minimum balance that is due, so you're not able to pay everything down to zero at the end of each month, you're not there yet. When I owed, let's use my American Express card, I had a minimum payment of $120. And so this is the minimum payment, which means you have to pay this amount by April 5th. And so for me in this situation back then, what I should have been doing is 2 weeks prior to April 1st, so middle March, I should have been paying $60. That's half of the bill. And then on the 1st, I would go back into that same account and I would pay the final $60, which amounts to the $120 that I was going to pay in the first place before the 5th. But it just looks better because of the amount of activity. So that's how you would go about your bills too if you're not able to pay to zero at the end of the month. Just have your budgeted amount for that specific bill, and then make sure you pay 2 weeks prior and then a few days prior to the actual due date to amount up to the total that is due for your minimum payment, or however much you're going to pay over. Please let me know if that makes sense in the comments. So those were the things that I forgot to mention in 2 weeks ago, because we went on vacation. We'll have a vacation video for you guys to see in Puerto Vallarta. But another thing that I wanted to add is, this goes along with your calculating your credit history and your credit score. Like I was saying, as we paid things down, my score went up and up and up, like over 130 points. From 1 year to the next, it went up. But when I paid off my student loan, my credit score dropped by 45 points. And this goes back to like not closing out your accounts. And that one, nothing I can do, because once it's paid in full, they close out the account. But that was 11 years worth of credit history that would have been added to my current credit history if it still existed, which makes my credit score look better because I've been utilizing credit responsibly for the last 11 years. So yeah, my credit score dropped by 45 points when I finished paying off my student loans, which was like, oh, what the hell? Like, I was in the 800s, now I'm back in the 7s. This is going to go back up because I'm not going to have another, loan or any type of account. I don't plan on ever, but anytime soon, let's just say that. But after about 2 months, it kind of course corrected. It didn't go back to where it was, but it went up by another 30, 35-ish points over the following 2 months. So don't lose hope there. I was told previously, oh, well, you don't want to be debt free because I guarantee your credit score is going to go down. It's like, well, I'd rather be debt free and have a 750, but guess what? It went back up and I'm back in the 800s. So doesn't matter. But yes, when I was speaking about keeping your accounts open, or why we are keeping our accounts open and not closing them out, it's specifically for that reason, because trying to maintain the credit score. That is all for this video. If this was helpful, please let me know in the comments. Please hit the like button and share with anybody that you think this will be of value. Thank you.